Hello, I am Joe McDonald and this is Big Mac's Battle Blogs, and today's video is about game-changing weapons or bits of technology. Now, on the last video I was talking about how FPV pilots are basically infinitely more useful and deadly than a sniper, at least in this war and this context. But some people in the comments made some good points that, while there's never a primary role, because your role, the job you have to do is defined by the situation you're in, which terrain, what the enemy are doing, what other assets you have. One of the main roles of a sniper, back in the day at least, was to collect information on the enemy because the scope lets you see further. Now, these days, any soldier who can get eyes on the enemy position and has, a radio or a messenger app on his phone, can do that role. Now, we fly drones, but I always think it's good to have redundancies. So one of the things I have is a set of binoculars. These are sort of sailing or military grade ones. They've got a built-in compass. So if you've got your eyes in the binoculars and you look down, you can get a compass bearing straight away. And of course, for night work, I've got a thermal scope, just in case the weather's too bad to fly the drones. We can still keep an eye on our lines and make sure that no one's using that bad weather to come and attack us. Bad weather and the cover of night. So yeah, also, because I'm a drone operator, we normally operate from, a whole variety of different sorts of abandoned buildings, and it's always nice to be able to check that no one's lurking in the dark, or when you wake up and the old Ukrainian army ration cache has made you need to go to the toilet at 3 a.m. It's really quite comforting to have a thermal scope then. So yeah, the scope and the binoculars was the old way of collecting, long distance information down at a army level, obviously, as a whole military, longer range observation used to be collected by planes and I suppose helicopters. But, Ukraine doesn't have that many planes, and we're certainly not flying them over Russian lines to have a look at what they're up to. That work is done with longer distance fixed wing drones. But yeah, in the old days, scopes and binos. And I would assume a radio set, or if you didn't have that, a runner. But, that took time. And I read the Telegraph articles that come online fairly often. The war coverage ranges from excellent to really poor and, opportunistic and fanciful. They're getting a bit like the Sun. By the way, Telegraph, if anyone's from watching this, your online photo editor needs sacking. If you're going to do an article about how Ukraine's using, unmanned submarines and speedboats to attack the Russian Navy, try not to have a photo of some guy in a trench with a fucking tank. Yeah? Seriously, you want to pay someone to be your photo editor for the war in Ukraine coverage? I could do with the money because I'll buy drones with it for my unit. Anyway, which will be used for peaceful purposes, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so people go on about game-changing weapons. One day these magic F-16s are going to turn up. They've sent 20 Challenger tanks. It's the best tank in the world. That's going to be a game changer. All of that stuff's bollocks. I'm going to show you now the one bit of technology, the one weapon or observational tool that has changed that has saved Ukraine. And it's this. A drone from the DJI Mavic series. Now this is a DJI Mavic Pro, but there's there's a little family of them. There's the Classic, the Enterprise, the Pro, and the Thermal, which is what we use for night. Without that thing, the Russians would have been able to achieve far more than they have, and fighting them would be incredibly hard. Someone I know told me a story that back up in the kind of Solidar, early days of Solidar and Bakhmut, there was a big, quite high-tech control room where all the drone footage was fed into, and they were using this to monitor the Russians and also to monitor and coordinate the movements of their own troops. And some kind of ordnance, some rockets or whatever, missile, landed quite close to it. So they all panicked and right, we've got to pack up the drone room. I mean, it might have had good reasons to, but, we've got to pack up the drone room and move now. So they did. But that information didn't get down to the infantry commanders, and they had an assault scheduled. So they put in this assault, and they had no eyes on the enemy, and in the sky, no eyes in the sky on their enemy, and no eyes on their guys. And they took horrendous casualties. If we didn't have drones in any sort of bad weather or night, they'd be able to raid our lines, come across the river, possibly in force. But we do have drones, and we do have thermal scopes and stuff like this. So yeah, I was speaking to a guy from a Special Forces drone team a while ago, and just the other day, in fact, we were chatting, and he was telling me that, in his opinion, the Mavic 3 is the weapon that saved Ukraine, and there should be a guy, should be a statue of a guy in Kiev. Well, I'll have to lean back. Well, probably not leant back at a weird angle like I am, but there should be a statue of a guy in Kiev with one of these, because without them, we would have been screwed. So, yeah, that's just my little point for the day, that of all the game-changing weapons that have come to Ukraine, the Mavic 3 has given us the most bang for the buck. HIMARS and M777s are wonderful, but you know what? We haven't got enough of them, and we haven't got enough rounds for them. In fact, we don't really have enough rounds for most of the artillery systems now, and I'm sure I'm not giving away any secret information, because the Russians know how much we're shooting at them, So yeah, that's the one thing we really, really need, is ammunition. And instead of countries sending, Germany and Poland and European countries have got some weird laws about thermals, right? So basically, while the army is able to acquire things like this, a lot at a high command level, the thermal drones we're using now are pretty much having to be smuggled into Ukraine past our own fucking border guards and past the German and the Polish customs. So you're supporting Ukraine with weapons, but at the same time, you're tying one hand behind our back, because many units all the way up and down the line rely on these drones for their immediate observation security. So, yeah, maybe it's time to just tell your customs agents from Ukraine, Poland, Germany, everywhere, to just turn a blind eye to that sort of thing, because, it's going to cost a lot of... Bloody earphone just fell out. It's going to cost a lot of lives. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents for the day. Anyway, it's goodbye from me at Big Mac's Battle Blogs. And, yeah, quickly, please do write to any politicians that you have. Go online, see who your local MP is. Write to the Minister of Defence from whatever country you're from and tell them we need shells, especially if you're from an Eastern European country, because it's not just the HIMARS and the M777s and shells and the Excaliburs we're short on. We're short on the old Soviet stuff as well. The 120 mortars, the 82 mortars, the 122 and 152 artillery, rockets for Grabs, rockets for Smersh, rockets for Uragans. We need that stuff, We really do. So yeah, please write to your MPs and your ministers of defence and tell them that if they want voting in again, that's what they need to give to Ukraine. We don't need, 10 more fucking ambulances and 50 more pieces of artillery would make all the difference in this war, especially down here on the southern front. And I'm sure they'd make a lot more difference anywhere. But yeah, anyway, it's goodbye from me, Joe McDonald at Big Macs Battle Blogs. And as always, to our Vatnik and Russian listeners, Idi Nahoy Zalupa.